Yo, what is good, family? I want to officially welcome you to the birth of the Unaccommodating podcast. That's right, you heard me. Unaccommodating podcast, where it is kept 100 from the jump. No bullshit, old school, speak your mind kind of stuff. The podcast description, if I was to put it into a nutshell, it'd kind of be like this. Host Jake Beard, yours truly, shares his views and opinions on everything. Everything. No topic is off limits and no comment is too far. A social commentary roller coaster of a podcast. True yarn and drivel at the highest order. Now, there's a few topics that I want to cover, and this is the very first episode, like a pilot episode pretty much of a podcast, and I'm really keen to get started. There's a lot of things I want to address. The first thing is why I started a podcast, why I restarted a podcast, and I'll give you a bit of context as to what I mean by that in a second when I say restarted a podcast. But I don't think a podcast could have come in a more organic way. Like some people, and you could even put me in this category, I would say previously with my other podcasts, people and me had something lingering in the back of their head where you felt that you could monetize your podcast, you could make money off your podcast, you could have notoriety off your podcast. You wanted your podcast to be seen and heard, and that wasn't the be-all, end-all reason why people start a podcast, but it's definitely a real factor. How can I make money off this? How can I monetize this? How can I gain popularity with my show? And I can say that I definitely fell into that category, and I really wish that I hadn't, but I did. As soon as you know you can make money somewhere, people tend to do it quite often, and it shows in a lot of it shows in a lot of podcasts and a lot of shows that if you do go into any kind of creative outlet, especially, something that's a podcast or something like radio or YouTube or anything like that, you try and do it for monetary purposes, it's going to show in your content, and it's going to show in the way you present yourself on the podcast, and it's going to show in how you speak. Like it's very genuine. Someone can come off very genuine and very raw and don't have any agenda behind what they're saying, whether it be like speaking on a particular topic or they're not looking to gain from what they just said. You can sense that, you can feel that. It's a vibe, and when it reeks. People have a bad odor on them when they're trying to sniff out money, when they're trying to sniff out popularity or notoriety, and so those are just terrible reasons to start a podcast. They should just become. Everyone has a different reason. Mine this time around. Look, I'll address everything all in one just to get started. Like, let's keep it 100. Like, I started a podcast called Man Without a Plan. And that was exactly that show title. The name of the show, the name of the podcast was completely apt. Like, it couldn't have been any more of a manifestation of what was happening in my mind. I had no plan. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to do a podcast, how to set it up. I didn't know anything about podcasting whatsoever. And that wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but you learn a lot very quickly in podcast land. I feel like once you have done a fair amount of episodes, like I think once you've done about 10 episodes, you're getting the hang of what a podcast is going to be like. And then after about 20 episodes, you're getting into a bit of a rhythm. 50 episodes, okay, you know what you're doing. By 100 episodes, you should have it down. And just going like, and I learned a lot in a very short period of time, but I was very inconclusive as to what direction I wanted to go into with the Man Without a Plan podcast. And I do feel like some of that naivety is still within me now. Like, I do like having a very broad podcast. The Man Without a Plan thing was just how I was feeling at the time mentally with the podcast. Like, how was I going to go about something I had no idea about? But with me now, I still feel that way. However, I have previous podcast knowledge, and I think that podcast ran for, 14 to 20 episodes or something like that. And then I thought, you know what, like I'm bouncing around too much. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with this podcast stuff. Like, it's just not making any sense. What's going on? How can I get this to feel better? And I think I was trying to pull too much from too many other different podcasters. Like, this person's doing this and this person's doing that. You know, how can I make this a bit more professional? And when you're a new podcaster too, what a good podcaster or someone who's looking to be a good podcaster would want to. They want to pull information from as many places as possible. So now with social media and in the internet and the way things are now, it is so easy to grab information and to reach out and connect with people from all across the globe. And like in podcast land, there's there's millions of podcasts out there, and there's a lot of different podcast groups where people share their podcast. They talk about their podcast, they talk about their achievements, their milestones, and they share their expertise, and they help young podcasters out, or they help other people out, or, you know, give them tips and tricks on how to succeed. It can be a very friendly environment and a very healthy environment to be in if you're a young podcaster getting into the game. And then, so I'd put my ego aside, and I put my podcast out there to be pretty much picked apart by people who know the podcast space better than me. So I was like, okay, go for it. Fucking vultures, attack at the shit. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what I'm doing right. Give me some feedback. Give me some honest criticism, like proper feedback, not just belting me, not just like beating a dead horse, you know. And so I got a lot of that feedback, and it helped me accelerate my podcast much faster. I wouldn't necessarily tell a lot of people to do that kind of thing, because you leave yourself very open to criticism very quickly. But then I did have a second podcast when I felt like the first one wasn't serving its purpose to me. I ended up doing the Final Form Sports podcast, which was a rugby league based show, and I really loved doing that. It was consuming me very, very quickly. I was finding it very, very hard to keep up with things, but I was finding a rhythm, and I was finding a pattern, and I was really enjoying what I was doing, and it was very specific to rugby league, something I know very, very well. I know a lot about it. And so that one ended very interestingly, and also it didn't go up in flames. It got shot down. It got shot down by enemy fire. What happened was, there was another podcast that had a similar name. Didn't have that exact name, had a similar name. But the crux of their title was Final Form. And so obviously that's the crux of my title too. Sports podcast was a sort of an adjacent heading to the Final Form brand, essentially, if you kind of get what I'm saying. And so they had copyrighted and trademarked that for some reason. And I had checked too, like I did it with Man Without a Plan, I did it with Final Form, and I'm doing it now with Unaccommodating, going through the registry and looking through and seeing what podcasts have that name. And there was only, I think, 2 that had a form on it, and one had Final Form, and it was an inactive podcast. And so essentially they trademarked it, they copyrighted it, and then also they found my podcast using a name very similar to theirs. Then all of a sudden it got really nasty. It got fucking really nasty really quickly. And the funny thing is, if anyone who's listening to this knows me personally, they know I'm a very combative person by nature. I don't take shit, and I like a fight. And I like a debate, I like a fight, and I don't back down from them. And this person pretty much hid behind their computer, hadn't even published an episode, hid behind the computer, and just talking. Actually, no, they didn't even make an episode, I think, about it. I was waiting for them to shoot some shots at me, and it was going to be like a podcast beef, but it didn't work out to be anything like that at all. And so they pretty much just emailed me probably about 3 or 4 times, just explaining how I'm in breach of copyright and trademarking issues and branding issues, and I need to relinquish the name, and then I need to stand down Final Form Sports Podcast, or I need to stand in anything that has creative content around the word Final Form in it. They own the name, blah, 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 blah. all this bullshit, all this fucking dribble that they were just spitting out, and it's complete another dribble, and just by fucking troglodytes that don't know any fucking better, or they just want to see the world fucking burn. They're just nasty cunts, and essentially, I ended up caving because I would either have had to shut down the show, which I did, or I would have had to take down everything that had Final Form attached to it. So the name, so obviously the cover art for the show, the artwork for the show, the name of the show, and every post that I had done. So I had social media, I had Instagram, Facebook, I had TikTok, and the TikTok was blowing up actually. The TikTok was doing really well, and anything that had Final Form in it that essentially was tethered to my content was essentially just going to be shot down, and it was going to be taken down. They said, you take down anything that has Final Form tethered to it, and then we will peacefully move on. Or if not, we're going to take legal action. So that was their problem. That was their answer to everything. We'll take legal action. We'll take you to court, blah, blah, blah. We'll sue you, blah, blah, blah. You're going to hear about this, and Apple's going to shut you down anyway because you're in breach of X, Y, and Z, and you won't be able to get listed on Spotify and all these things, and become such a big ordeal. Emails going back and forth for about a week or two, and it just blew up, and it becomes so much of a hassle. It was like, I'm not even really doing the podcast anymore because I'm too busy fighting these fucking pricks over a name of a show. And if it was just the name, I'd be like, sweet, I don't want to hear anything about it. I'll change the name. I don't give a shit. I'm not attached to the name. I can fucking think of something else. I'm not a creative fucking moron. I can think of something better than Final Form probably, or I can change it up. It doesn't bother me. It's the content that I was sort of worried about, or that I was worried about not being able to pursue the show. And it was a lot of work to take down every post, all the hashtags I'd put up, all the groups that I was attached to, all the rugby league groups I was attached to be able to take all those posts down as well. And then, not just all my episodes as well. Like when you try and make a show, when you try and popularize, or when you try to, put a show that a podcast that you're working towards out to the public, there's a fair amount of social media distribution and posts and all those kinds of things. And I had shared it on my personal socials as well, and some other family members and friends had shared the posts and some of the content on their socials as well. And then all of a sudden, it'll become too much of a beast to just have everyone take down all their shit that they've put, that they've posted on me, that they've shared about my podcast. And so instead of just going for the next couple of weeks, just going down the rabbit hole of having to tear everything down, to then have a couple more weeks to kind of get it running up again and get a new name and everything like that, I'm just like, it's easy just to shut down the show and not have this issue again. And then there's a lot of outside drama that was heading my way at that time, and that just kind of evolved, and it all kind of snowballed into one big flow-on effect, and it just made my decision a little bit easier. But nevertheless, those two podcasts, one was done with complete naivety, and I love that show. And I'm actually, because those episodes are not currently listed on Apple iTunes, Men Without a Plan does not exist at all. So I still have the rights to those episodes. I still have all those episodes locked away in a vault. And there's a couple of them that I actually want to resurface. There's probably about 2 interviews that I did that I want to resurface, and I want to resurface them on this show. Because this show doesn't have a topic. It doesn't have, it's not going to be a cooking show. It's not going to be, a gardening show. It's not going to be a comedy kind of show. There's no specific niche to this show. It's not going to be a sports show. It's going to be a show about whatever the fuck I want to talk about, whatever the fuck is on my mind. I will say what I want to say. I will do what I want to do. This is my show, my rules. And what, you're going to cancel me? You're going to try and cancel me? I'm running my big production out of a spare bedroom out of my house. You're going to cancel me for what? Other than this show, I have virtually no social media presence now whatsoever. I never really liked it anyway. I do this show for me because I fucking love doing the podcast. Other than that, social media wise, I'm fucking non-existent. So you cancel me all you want, but this show, I don't have any niche, so I feel like I can dabble in whatever I want. If I want to talk about shoes, or I want to talk about Jordans or Yeezys or whatever, if I want to talk about powerlifting, if I want to talk about rugby league, or if I want to talk about the social, if I want to talk about pop culture, hip hop, what's going on in the world right now, news, whatever it is, I don't have any limit. So that's what I really gravitate towards. I'm a very broad person by nature. I don't hammer down on one or two specific things. I like to do a bit of everything, and I like to talk about a bit of everything. And so we could go from one episode could be talking about UFOs, the next episode we could be talking about Tupac. So anyway, that's the kind of thing I have envisioned for the show, and that's exactly what I want to be able to do for the show, and not to have any kind of topics that are off limits. That's the one thing. Like, everyone now niches down. This is going to be mostly a solo based podcast, I guess. I'm going to have guests on. Like I said, I'm going to resurface a couple episodes from the old show that I could still play and are relevant. And those are interviews, and I'm going to be doing interviews for this show, but I'm not going to force interviews. Like, I'm not going to have interviews on having guests on the show for the sake of it. Like, I don't want to have them on just be like, oh, they've got like 450,000 followers. So if I get them on the show and I can get like 1,000 people to listen, that's 1,000 listeners. I'll be able to get an extra 500 people listening to the show on a regular basis, or whatever the case may be. It's not going to be based on popularity or shit like that. I was like, oh man, this guy's got some fucking followers. I'm like, maybe I can sort of expand a little bit, and I can get more listeners. If I had this person on the show, based on their popularity, their notoriety, and not who they were as a person or what they're doing and what interests me. There was quite a few guests where actually all my guests from the previous podcast, I was interested in what they were doing. But like, there was a lot of people who I was entertaining the idea of having them on the show, and it was just like, no, it doesn't fit. Like, it just doesn't fit with the show. And if I was to have them on the show, it'd be for all the wrong reasons, and I wouldn't be really interested to talk to them. The conversation would be fucking dog shit, and it wouldn't flow, and I just wouldn't feel right. The vibe would be just dog shit anyway. So there's no point. So with any guests that I'm looking to have on my show, if I get to have guests, if I'm lucky enough and fortunate enough to have good guests on the show, I want them to just be people that I'm interested in talking to. I'm interested to talk about. We have a great conversation with them. But a lot of the different topics of why I wanted to start the show, like what I did wrong before, like I mentioned the monetization thing. I also was chaotically planned. I was so well organized, but not organized. Like, I was a big contradiction on myself. Like, the show Man Without a Plan, I really had no plan. I really didn't have a direction that I wanted to take the podcast in or anything like that. However, I wanted to segment the show, which made no sense. Like, and the segmenting of the show was based on different like hobbies or things that I like. So, one segment of the show would be like talking sneakers, and the next segment of the show would be like news, and it just didn't make any sense. The show was it was like an amalgamation of so many different shows put together that just didn't work. It was a fucking stupid hybrid thing that I enjoyed doing, but it just, in hindsight, from a listener's perspective, it just wasn't catching. It wasn't taking. So not only the monetization side of things, but the show structure just wasn't there. Well, it was there, but it was put in the wrong places, and the applications I put in place for the show just weren't put in properly, and it just didn't make sense. The show didn't make sense. The final form made a hell of a lot of sense, but I don't know how sustainable that show would have been. So, like, this show in particular, I want to do this show, which goes back to what I was talking about fucking nearly 20 minutes ago. I want to do this show as like, almost like a personal journal. Like, I just want to, if I ever want to get shit off my mind, I've got things that I want to just talk about, things I want to rant about, things that I feel like opinions or thoughts that I want to address on different things that are happening or that have happened. This is a great outlet to do that, and I'm whether people listen or not now is just not even my. I'm not even fucking really bothered by it, to be honest. Like, if people listen, great, and I'm very grateful that people do listen, and that means a lot. And I'm very appreciative of anybody who does listen or support the show by listening or rating or subscribing or whatever it is. But I'm not going to be this time around. Like, I'm not going to be doing social media for a long time. I'm not going to promote the show in any capacity. I'm not going to have any social media in any capacity that is directed towards the show. I'm not going to be doing any promoting whatsoever of this show. So this show is going to be completely bare, and I'm just going to talk on the mic about what I feel like and talk to people who I want to talk to. So there'll be guests on there. I don't know how frequent, just whenever I want to have guests on, and I'll talk to a mic by myself whenever I want to talk to a mic by myself. That's the beauty of having your own show. You can do whatever the fuck you want. But I do, like, yeah. So anyway, I kind of lost what the fuck I was thinking about. But yeah, this one is different. And I'm really happy that this podcast is... I just missed doing it. That's why I'm back. That's why I'm doing it again. I just miss podcasting. I don't know why. I have a yearning to do something more creative. So I just did to do. I never thought I really had much of a creative bone in my body, but shit, man, I want to do something creative. I didn't want to do something that was fun. You know, this is fun for me. I like doing this podcasting shit, and hopefully I get to do it for a long time, for many hundreds of episodes, thousands of episodes if I'm lucky. But, you know, things just weren't right before. Things weren't all... I hate to keep saying the word organic, and it's kind of an overused word, but it's hard not to overuse it, because that word, it does really surmise how this show, the Unaccommodating podcast, has come about. It's just, this podcast come about, the Unaccommodating, and I hope to get to do this show forever. It's just because I missed it. I just miss podcasting. I just want to have fun. I wanted to create almost like a personal journal, I guess. Like, I just wanted to get shit off my mind, get shit off my chest, and just talk and riff and have fun and talk some shit, talk some trash, and just give my thoughts and opinions on what's happening around the world, and, you know, what's happening right now, what has happened. And, you know, I want to have fun with it this time. Like I said, I'm not monetizing. I'm not saying I won't monetize. I'm not saying I won't promote my show, and I'm not saying I won't have social media for my show at some stage. As of right now, I'm not going to go and create monetization strategies, and I'm not going to create social medias or anything like that until I know that people are wanting to listen. And, you know, so if you do like the show, you do want to support the show, rate it on Apple, rate it on Spotify, subscribe to the show, and keep listening to the show. And if you are kept informed on the show, you have rated the show on Apple, you subscribed, and you keep listening to episodes of the show, then I know people are interested, and people, and then I can be like, okay, well then there is a bit of a following for the show, and people do enjoy the show. Maybe it's time to have social media. Maybe it's time to not promote, but let's start. No, not branding, but let's have social media for the podcast. Let's find a way to interact with the community better, or more at all. Right now, I'm keeping this very secluded. I'm keeping this very, very confined. I'm not expanding at all. Like, words just aren't coming out, man. You get what I'm saying. You know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like, I'm not going to promote the show. I'm not going to try and make the show bigger than Ben-Hur. I'm going to take baby steps with the show. If people are listening to the show, if people are liking what they're hearing from the show, then I'll think about doing the social media. I'll think about taking the next step in podcast space. You know, but let's make sure you're doing it for the right reasons first, and then people will be able to smell that. People will be able to understand it and feel that vibe that, you know, he's doing it for the right reasons. He's having fun with it. It's a great podcast to listen to. I'll keep supporting it by listening to it. And then if good things come off the back of that, then good things do. If not, then it doesn't matter, because I'm doing this just for my sake. But I missed the podcast so much. I miss doing podcasting so much. And so this is episode 1. This is the pilot podcast. I guess it's a pilot. It's just episode 1. It's not a trailer to anything. It's a long fucking trailer. It's a 25 goddamn minute trailer. That's ridiculous. But anyway, like, what to expect on the podcast? Like I said, I want to talk about whatever the fuck I want. And it's not going to be a super produced show. Like, there's a lot of podcasts. Hold on. Coffee sip. Coffee sip. That's ASMR. I'm not into the ASMR stuff, but people seem to very vibe off it. Okay, I can kind of understand why it's popular. I don't get it. But that ASMR shit, like that lip smacking and like that coffee drinking and some of the sounds that those ASMR... They're mostly chicks, eh? Like the ASMR chicks, they're the ones that do all the kind of like sensual, sexual shit, all the very quiet lip smacking or whatever it is, or popping or whatever it is that people listen to in ASMR. It normally is chicks for some reason. I don't know why, but chicks just make money for out of nothing. Like there was a chick that was it in the US or UK who made thousands and thousands and thousands, like I think it was like 20 grand plus a month, just selling her farts, selling her fucking hot air coming out of her ass, and she puts it in a jar, and then she sends it off to people around the world. So she sells hot air from her asshole, puts it in a fucking glass jar, wraps it up in a pretty little bow, and will ship it to fucking Croatia or fucking New Zealand or wherever, and then that's her business, and she makes so much money doing it. She makes hundreds of thousands of dollars a year selling her fucking ass air, and that makes no goddamn sense that people would pay for that. She must. I wonder how much she was charging for a jar. That's ridiculous. Like that business model is brilliant. However, she got sick. I'm pretty sure she got sick. She was in the hospital because she tried to, like, she was eating like tons of eggs and tons of like baked beans and all the foods that make you fart. And so she was just hammering those foods down. She was just taking it straight to the throat with all those foods, and then just to try and make herself fart more so that she could just, her production line could just keep growing more. Like she could just fart more, get it into a jar, quick, ship it off. Like her partner, I think she had a partner, her partner would be like flabbergasted, but also like, bitch, I'm sick of smelling your goddamn ass all day in jars. Like, surely she was employing him to be able to help keep up with production and supply. So he was just taking it straight to the nostril every day to make sure that she was making bank. But she ended up hospitalized trying to like fart more. So eating more foods that would fart more. So she was having like gastrointestinal problems. Like, if I could sell my farts, I would make more money than her. I think I've got the asshole of a 48-year-old man. I'm 25. I have a pensioner's asshole. It's been through wars. It's been through like Gallipoli and shit. It's been through like the Vietnam War. This asshole. Like my ass is a veteran. My ass is a goddamn veteran. So I'm pretty sure I could make more money than she would. I wonder if there's a market out there for me being able to fart into a jar and make that happen. I know I was just saying I don't monetize podcasts, but this is monetizing farts. This is different. Monetizing your rectum flatulently. Because no one wants to see guys' ass. But I'm pretty sure that could happen. I'll shoot my shot. But like with all this OnlyFans stuff and everything like that, like surely there's a market for it. But I went really off topic, but what to expect on the show. So that was the bullet point. I went from farting in a jar, monetizing farting in a jar, and that was like what to expect. That was my headline for the next topic was what to expect on the show. So there will be farting on the show, there will be flatulence on the show, and there'll be trying to make money on the show, just trying to fart. But look, I will have guests. I'll have them on when I want to have them on. I'll talk to whoever I want to talk to. I won't have a deadline. Like I won't be like, I'm going to have a guest every second week or every third episode or whatever the case may be. I'm pretty sure at this point I'm just going to have like a one episode once a week, and I don't have a time limit on the episode. Like the whole podcast is very open-ended, and this is the Unaccommodating podcast. I'm not accommodating anybody other than myself. I've been told I'm a very unaccommodating person. I kind of tell it how it is, and I shoot from the hip, and that I can be. I'm not a son of a bitch. I'm not a prick. But I just I don't have the best filter necessarily. I think that's my biggest problem. That's what people tell me. I'm unaccommodating. I don't have the best filter. So I'm not a cunt, but I'm not like walking around skipping rosy cheeks, handing out flowers and chocolates to everybody like every day is a goddamn blessing. All right, I'm not a Grinch, but I'm not a fucking you know these happy people, those sons of bitches, those happy motherfuckers that they just skip around their day like everything like there can be a car crash that'll happen right in front of them and they'll find the silver lining in the car crash. Like every day is God's fucking gift and they just find a way to make everything so positive. Not every situation is a positive situation. Those people piss me off. Don't come around me with your false positive. It's fake. It's some fake bullshit. If you are happy all the time, you are either not a human being, you are from out of space, you are out of your mind, or you're out of your mind. So you're either crazy or you're not human if you're happy all the time. And people who are happy all the time cannot be trusted. Kill them. Put them away. Put all the happy people in a jail cell and they can all be happy together all the fucking time. I crossed somebody the other day. It was a chick. She was serving me at the checkout, and I was probably about 4th or 5th in line, and she was just so happy, so annoyingly happy. Like, just the smile did not leave her face. Like, it was almost manufactured. It was too much. Her eyes were wide open, big fucking eyes, serial killer eyes. Can't trust the eyes. If you can't trust the eyes, can't trust the person. Can't trust the person, put them in a body bag. It's done. It's a done deal. Wrap it up. For 4th or 5th in line. She did not frown once. She did not smile. It was like the Cheshire cat. It was ridiculous. But by the time in the space of by the time the first person and me in that 5-minute window, it was too much. I had to get away from it because it was infecting everybody else. It was really weird. It was manufactured. It was fake. It wasn't real. She wasn't trying to be happy. She wasn't happy. She was like almost trying to be happy. Like it was just like her boss goes, "I'm gonna fire you," or like someone goes, "I have a literal gun to every one of your family members' head, little Johnny, little Timmy, your mum, your dad, I've got to come to all of your heads if you don't be happy all the time right now." And so that was what it was like. It was fear behind the eyes, but always happy. And it reeked. And I couldn't stand it to get away from it. It was too much. Be normal. But just be normal person. It's not hard. You smile, you say hi, how you doing? Fine, great, awesome. See you later. Thank you. And that's it. Don't be acting all fucking over the top because I'll kill you. Put it in a body bag. What to expect of the podcast? Fuck me. Off topic. But anyway, that bitch was crazy. But just, yeah, I'm not an overly positive and happy person, but I'm not a Grinch either. There's a little middle ground there where people speak their mind, and that's what I do, and that's what I like doing. But I think once a week on the podcast is fine. 1 day a week, and I don't have a time limit. So I can do it for 30 minutes, I can do it for 3 hours, it doesn't matter. I can Joe Rogan it for 3 hours. I think his longest episode was like 4.5, really 5 hours, it was ridiculous. But I can do whatever I want with it. But I think once a week is more than enough. My hands are tied time-wise anyway. It's a fucking miracle I have time to get away to do this. I start work at 5:30 in the morning, so I can have time to be able to do a podcast in the afternoon. Yeah, 5:30. I start work at 5:30 in the morning, motherfuckers. While you're getting them Z's, man, I'm getting them dollars. That's right. But anyway, topics that I do want to cover, and I did want to talk about Tonga. So there was a massive tsunami in Tonga over the past couple of days, and I know a lot of different sports and a lot of different organisations are sort of reaching out in their aid to raise funds for Tonga. For people who are overseas listeners, Tonga got hit with a massive tsunami, and there hasn't been too many deaths. There's been a couple of deaths. I think in the single digits still, but a lot of damage, a lot of destruction, a lot of damage, and thoughts thoughts, and I'm not going to say prayers because thank God I'm an atheist, but thoughts go out to everybody that have suffered at all during that tsunami. And some of the tsunami was I think that big. The weather warnings to surrounding islands and surrounding continents, like there was a lot more rain over those. I don't know how the weather patterns work, but there was much more rain. I know in Australia over those past couple of days. I know there were weather warnings over in surrounding islands and surrounding continents as well. But I think there's been a fair deal of damage, and there's been a fair bit of Barney going on over there, and hopefully the death toll is very low, and hopefully the damage isn't as catastrophic as we thought it would be. But I know like the rugby league community, I know other sporting communities, they're trying to raise funds by selling equipment or for game days, ticket prices and stuff like that. Some of the ticket fares will go towards raising more money to help those people out that have taken it pretty fucking hard with the tsunami. But it's good to see for once, in the midst of all the bullshit happening with COVID, that there is some human decency going around, and people, and the other things like COVID is always going to be the placeholder. It's always going to be like the main thing happening that everyone's talking about right now. But other shit is happening in the world alongside COVID. The whole world's dealing with COVID, but then when you have shit like this adding to your plate, it just gets too much. So hopefully the devastation isn't too large a scale, and there haven't been too many deaths. I haven't really looked it up, and to be honest, I don't really want to. It's a fucking downer. But speaking of COVID, the state of Australia right now is just complete. It's in shambles, man. It's bullshit. It's just like even the US. I think someone said the other day, maybe on the news or on the podcast or something like that, that they don't have a single death from Omicron, whatever the fuck it is. But here in Australia, they're still pumping it like it's like we're in the very beginning of the pandemic. We're in the heart of the pandemic, or like a nuclear bomb's gonna go off if we don't all get vaxxed. Like right now, one of the biggest things in Australia is they're preaching the number of people that have COVID. Like they're like, okay, we've never had COVID numbers this large before. But let's think about it. You haven't had COVID numbers this large before. Like I think we've superseded the 100,000 market in New South Wales alone. I think it was New South Wales alone. And I'm like, well, that's good though, because the fucking Omicron is less severe. Like it's not as strong. It's not as an intense strain. So let's all fucking get Omicron and then let's fucking move on. Let's get the flu and then move on with it, because Omicron now is just it's pretty much just like a nasty flu. That's pretty much all it is. Like people at the very beginning of COVID were like the Alpha and Delta strains were like, no, this is just a bad flu. It was a bit more serious than that, and it was attacking the elderly very, very harshly. And there were deaths due to COVID. There were. Were there underlying health issues? Who the fuck knows? I'm not going through all that shit. Each country's stats are going to be very, very different. They're going to be skewed. Whether the information that we were receiving was accurate or not, who the fuck knows? But in Australia right now, but we're now third strain in, and I have a friend of mine who currently has COVID as we speak. He's still living his life. I mean, he's ripping billies, he's playing PS5, and he's beating off at home, living the dream. And so, and he's living the dream at the moment. Like extended family members have had COVID. They're all sweet. That's Omicron. So this is now Omicron is just a slightly worse flu. That's what Omicron is now, and that's not like understating it. That's just what it is. So whatever the next strand is going to be after Omicron is going to be even less severe than that. Like that was the thing. Like the Omicron is much more contagious, but it's nowhere near as severe. And that's the stage we want to be at. But yet we're still wearing fucking masks. Like we've all got full blown AIDS. Wearing masks like we all have all of the AIDS. And we still have to check in and all this shit. Like the checking in, like I understand, because then you can be aware if you were in close contact, and it's easier for the government to track everything in terms of what states have how many cases and where the cases have been, and it's data collection for them. But for us, it's a fucking nightmare. Like, I have to stop, QR code my ass in everywhere I go. Every time I stop and get petrol. Every time I stop to get something to eat. It is the most annoying fucking thing. But the masks do my head in. And I'm like, this is now, it was never too far. Coffee break. Long black. No one asks for a short black, you go to long black. It's not racist, that's just fact. Like a man. Take it like a fucking man. None of that fucking milk shit. None of that froth on the top. But the masks are now overkill. We now should be past masks. Like, I don't know what the situation is over in the US, but I'm getting the vibe that, like, they're open. They're just doing shit. Like, we're pretty open. Things are pretty open here. But we still have a lot of regulations that the government is still trying to have us under their thumb. They're still trying to fucking control us. And I know that sounds very conspiracy, very tinfoil hatty, but that's what it fucking feels like. Like, I understand the check-ins. It's data collection and they need that. Fine. Live with it. But the masks now are ridiculous. Like, I still see people in their cars by themselves wearing masks like a fuckhead. Why? Who are you catching the virus from in your own car by yourself? You schizophrenic fuck. Oh, like, and then people would just be sitting out in the park eating by themselves. There's no one else in the park, but you're still wearing a fucking mask. You can't catch COVID from the trees, bitch. Take the mask off and live a little. God damn. And like, those people make it even fucking worse because those pricks get on. Well, I guess I'm one of those pricks, but they get on every fucking social media post and saying, oh, no, they're not pro-COVID, but they're pro-health, I guess, or they're pro-masks, they're pro-checking in, and they're just the government's fucking side, bitch. Like, they're just doing whatever the fuck the government wants them to do. And, like, it's not about fuck the establishment, it's none of that bullshit. It's just like, haven't you fucked with us enough? Like, haven't you taken away, you know, money from small businesses, large businesses? Like, how much of a hit does the economy have to take? You know, and they're just like, oh, you know, it's for your sake, it's for the people's sake. No, it's fucking not. And then the politicians who are trying to be very conservative with all this COVID bullshit want to make themselves look like the hero. And it's like, well, I'm looking after you. No, you're not. You're trying to make yourself look good to make us think that you're looking after us, but you're not. And there's just, the government just has too much control over our free will. And I sound like the biggest hypocrite, and I'll be the first one to admit it. I'm not, you know, like I'm not blind to hypocrisy, but I got double vaxxed and I'm gonna get the booster. That's not because I'm trying to follow the government's fucking, you know, their controlling regime. It's because I have a daughter and I don't want her to get sick. I'll take COVID to the fucking lungs, bring it on. Cough in my goddamn face. I'll survive. I just got pneumonia. Beat that shit. Beat that shit. Doesn't have a fucking, doesn't even hold a candle. I didn't even, with pneumonia, I didn't even feel like I had anything wrong with my lungs. I was rat shit for a good week, a week and a half, but I was having the cold chills and the hot sweats, the vomiting, you know, all that shit, the dizziness. I was passing out. I was in a bad way for a while, like very, very, like, bad, and liver was starting to shut down, but my lungs felt fine. But they told me I had pneumonia. Didn't feel like it. I don't know if it was because I was just sitting down all the time. Didn't feel like my lungs had a single issue. So I feel like my liver was shutting down. My liver count, one of my liver enzyme counts was well above 300. And so, like, they were like, you know, if you didn't get into the hospital as soon as what you did, and I got into the hospital after about day 4. I felt crook on the Friday, passed out on the Friday night, and then Tuesday morning at 1:30 in the morning is when I went in the hospital, and I was in a pretty bad way. The whole COVID ICU unit, all that shit. Yeah, but it was pretty rough. That was pretty rough, but it wasn't like cardiovascular, like, rough. It wasn't my lungs were playing up on me. Like, I did have pneumonia. I did have, like, lung issues, but I didn't notice it at all. Not even once. Didn't notice a cough. Didn't even have a cough. Not even a cough. Barely a bit of fucking phlegm on the lungs. Well, that's what they told me, unless they misdiagnosed me. But they all thought I had COVID. It was so funny. Well, it's funny now looking back on it. It wasn't fucking funny at the time. The bitch should have gotten fucking knocked out. But I had a mask on, and then I had a face shield on for when my wife called the ambulance. And then when the ambulance arrived, I'm sitting at my front veranda, and I'm sitting down on the floor, and I'm in a bad way, and then because I got both masks on me, I'm sweating even more, and then they get me into the ambulance, and I have a literal, like, if I had a half a litre of water and I poured it on the ground on the ambulance floor in the ambulance, that was what my sweat was like. I was sweating that profusely. My mask was fogging up. I couldn't see the lady in front of me. I was sweating through my clothes, on the floor, everywhere. And then she goes, "So, you know you have COVID, right?" And I was like, "How do you know? Like, I haven't had a test. We don't know that." And she goes, "Oh, no." She goes, "You're the poster boy for COVID. Like, you've got COVID. Like, that's not up for debate." And I was like, and I was that crook. I was like, I didn't have the energy to fight with her. I started to believe, I'm like, fuck, what if I do have COVID? Like, I've got a daughter. Like this. I don't want to fucking be crook that bad. I want to be on fucking ventilation and shit. Let's not go out like this. Fuck. She was freaking me out at fucking 1:30 in the morning. Crook as a goddamn dog. And then she goes, there's no cure for that, right? There's no cure for COVID, so you're just gonna have to fight it on your own. I'm like, thanks fucking happy Harry. You're not making the situation any better. I'm already feeling pretty damn shit. I'm going to the hospital because I'm all fucked up. And you want to make it even worse by just kicking me in the dick when I'm down? Man, this bitch, she had some fucking cojones on her, man. She didn't give a fuck what anyone thought. She just said what was on her mind. I'm like, but you haven't tested me, so you don't know. She goes, "Oh, I know. Like, you've got COVID." The bitch needed to be put down. She needed to be put down. Euthanize her. She was terrible. Absolutely. She was freaking me the fuck out. Didn't have COVID. Did not have COVID. I still haven't got it yet. But, my fucking test results took days to come, which is ridiculous. But they put me in the ICU unit, only two people allowed in. One was the nurse, one was the doctor. One nurse, one doctor, no one else in, no one else out. And they had to scrub in every time they come into the rooms. They had like a separate room beside mine where they would scrub in and scrub out, and then just me in the room by myself. And it was kind of fucked. Like, I wasn't in the hospital for too long, but they told me I had pneumonia. I'm like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, if I have pneumonia, I don't have COVID. If I had pneumonia and COVID, I'd be deceased. And so I was like, beautiful, don't have COVID, but don't feel like I have pneumonia. I just feel pretty fucking bad. It's easily the sickest I've been in my life. I was sick with it. I was too sick with it. And man, it was horrible. Couldn't stand. Felt dizzy as all fuck. Man, the world, I felt like I was on all the drugs that I took, all in my system, all at one time, and they were all fighting against each other in my body. And they just didn't want to interact with each other well. And my mind was RS, rat shit. It was terrible. But they treated me like I had COVID, but I didn't. And that was pretty, like, I don't know what's worse. Is COVID worse than pneumonia, or is pneumonia worse than COVID? I don't know. Like, with Omicron. It's truly pneumonia is worse than Omicron. But anyway, for a full week, I had nurses come out to me. The nurses were awesome too. Like, props to I'm pretty sure it was Goulburn inpatient. Is it outpatient or inpatient? Inpatient at home care. I was at home, so they sent me home after 24 hours because I'm like, I'm not staying here any longer. Fuck this place. Get me home. This is shit. I can only I can't sleep at the hospital because I can only keep watching Seinfeld for so long. I cannot sleep. I've got to get home. And so I'd rather die at home than fucking die in a hospital. So get me home. And yeah, all right, we'll get you home. That should be fine. No worries. But the nurses come out were brilliant. They injected me with a liquid IV antibiotics for 2 weeks. And then I had my own oral antibiotics for a couple of days. And then I had my oral antibiotics after that for 2 more weeks. And so by the time I was 100% like off all antibiotics, it was like 2 days before Christmas. But I was feeling fine before Christmas, for a couple of weeks before Christmas. So it come at the beginning of December. I was like, oh, I don't want to be sick before Christmas. That would suck. Because I can't strap on a fucking feed bag Christmas Day and fill up this fucking 20-litre gullet I've got going on. But yeah, the nurses were fantastic. Getting blood tests every third day. I'm like, oh, this kind of sucks. I can get this cannula out. It was pissing me off. One of the nurses come in. She just kept fucking missing the vein in my right arm. I had the cannula in my left arm, and then I'm like, oh, we'll put it in the right arm because you've had it on this arm for a good few days now. We probably should switch it up. And then she can't find the fucking vein, so she kept pricking me, and I was just about to belt her across the face. And she wasn't my favourite. She knows that. You know, I'm not saying she has a hard job. I'm not saying she got an easy job. I'm just saying, don't try and kill me. It's not that hard. Get the fucking cannula in my arm. But they were fantastic. Most of the nurses were fantastic. But like, it was a bit of a scare because like Omicron hadn't come out yet. It was still Delta at that stage, I think. And I was in a pretty bad way, but to be honest, like I kind of just want to get COVID to get it over and done with. But the way that New South Wales is, the way Australia is right now, it's way too locked down, way too fucking strict, super strict compared to some of these other countries. Other countries, like they have many more cases than what we do, but you know they're treating it like it's the goddamn flu, and that's the cold. Like that's all it is, just a shitty cold, just a more aggressive cold. You know, I think the pandemic should be over. I'm really hoping by 2023, which is a whole nother year, it's a whole nother 12 months of this fuckery. I'm hoping by then we have put this behind us, and those 3 years can now be just a moment in the past, like just a time like in the history books where it's like, remember the fucking Spanish flu? You know, I'm not saying it's bad as the Spanish flu or the Black Plague or anything like that, but it'll just be like, do you remember when COVID was a thing? And it was a fucking legit disease and people would shit themselves over it. I'm hoping by next year it's just that and we don't have to mask up and no more fucking retards of fucking eating bat soup. That's not racist. That's just what fucking happened. But anyway, look, Australia's way too locked down still. The government still has way too much control on what we're doing. What is this bullshit? I need someone, please, reach out and explain this to me. Why we, like in New South Wales, in Australia, you can go to a pub, or you can go to a club, or to a wedding, or to a venue of some sort, and they play music, and it's like there were restrictions on whether you could stand up or whether you could sit down. There are restrictions on whether you could dance or not dance, sing or not sing. Like, if I got up, stood up, and danced at a wedding, for example, that's a crime. That's an offence, and then you can be charged for that offence. Like, you can technically be arrested for that offence if I stood up and danced. But if I stood down and if I sat down and tapped my foot, I'm fine. What is the thing about dancing or singing or standing up and moving around in a venue? Why is that more fucking like what? How am I gonna catch COVID from that? If someone was sitting next to me, licking my goddamn face, but they were sitting next to me and they weren't dancing, but they were licking my face and they had COVID, but someone was next to me dancing, standing up and dancing and singing and moving around. Like, how could they what is the difference between standing and sitting and dancing and not dancing at venues? Like, how is COVID gonna get me any more or less in those two situations? It is the single dumbest thing I've ever heard. Dance, you get COVID. Sing, you get COVID. Sit down, you'll be okay. What the fuck is that all about? That is so arbitrary. It's so bullshit. Like, I don't understand how that makes sense. Show me the research papers that says dancing creates COVID. Dancing spreads COVID. So, it infuriates me. And there's this bitch, man. There's this chick who's like now COVID fucking minister of New South Wales or COVID minister of Australia. I don't know who she is. She's a troll, an absolute troll. She's the ugly fucking bat, beaten with the ugly bat too many times. Like, wow. Like, I think she's like, no one can sing, no one can dance. I can't enjoy my life because I'm such a troll, and you can't sing and dance because, and we'll blame it on COVID too. And like, this random chick just come out of nowhere, and she's giving us all these rules and regulations, and all our ministers for each state are just listening to this fucking goblin talk utter bullshit, talk utter nonsense, and then enforcing these COVID rules. I know who she is, but pull your head in. Anyway, things are just way too strict for COVID right now, like for Omicron. The next strain, whatever the next strain after Omicron is, it's going to be even less severe and even more contagious, and like, we will be fine. We're going to be fine. Don't freak out. If you're still wearing your masks at home while you're sleeping or by yourself, in the car by yourself, if you are still wearing a mask without anyone around you at all, if you're walking your dog and you're wearing a mask because your dog's obviously got COVID, check yourself. Check yourself, because you may possibly be retarded. Oh, is that word cancelled? Is retard cancelled? I don't give a... They're retarded. You're wearing a mask by yourself, you're retarded. Retard. Anyway, I don't like these restrictions. They need to ease up. We're past all this now, surely. And I hope by 2023, COVID is just a distant memory, and we don't have to worry about this anymore. So we don't have to continue with all this bullshit anymore. But, and speaking of COVID sort of subcategory, Novak Djokovic, he's been through some shit. I don't follow tennis. I don't like tennis. It's gay. It's boring. It's not, oh yeah, it is kind of boring. It's kind of boring. The racket does all the work. Hate it or leave it. Love it or leave it. The racket does the work. Well, he got his visa denied, or he got his visa denied in Australia. Well, then it got accepted, and then it got denied again. Then I think the French opens after the Australian Open, and the French have denied his visa as well, or his passport, or I think it's his visa. Australia denied his visa twice. It went to I think it went to the Supreme Court or the fucking whatever it is. It went up the chain of command. It was not passed, then passed, then not passed. You're kicked out of the country, deported out of the country. Visa declined. You cannot fucking play tennis here. I'm not going to miss it. It's just tennis, mate. We're not going to really miss it. Like, just scoot off back home and, throw a racket around somewhere else and make some more money. It doesn't really bother us. But the French have also denied access to him during the French Open because he's anti-vax. So another power play from the government, a controlling play from the government. I'm sure he'll play somewhere else, but who gives a fuck? Because it's also tennis. Also, who gives a fuck about cricket too? I'm not a cricket fan. I'm an Aussie. Aussies grow up with cricket around them. I didn't. I kind of did and I didn't. I just don't like it. It's boring. It's fucking boring. It's just a less skill. It's like I don't know how to explain it. It's just like, it's reverse baseball pretty much. It's reverse baseball. But I think even with baseball is like a much faster pace. Like I think it's hard. It's actually, I know for a fact, having like bowled before and pitched before properly, and I know how to pitch. I used to know how to pitch a baseball quite well. It is much, much, much harder to pitch a baseball properly, to hit the glove at the speeds at which those fuckers are throwing the ball. I think they're throwing 90 to 110 mile an hour fastball, and to hit glove, to get a clean glove shot, from the mound is much harder than to bowl in cricket. And anyone who wants to fight me on that, please, wants to debate me on that, please, come on down. Bowling is, first of all, like your arms have like a windmill action. So you're throwing the ball to the ground. You're pretty much just trying to be able to bowl the ball so that the ball drops just before the fucking wickets, and then it bounces up, and that's if you're just a general cricket person or general person that plays cricket, just bowl the ball so when the ball bounces, it bounces just before the wickets or just before their legs. It's so much easier aiming wise, coordination wise. I mean the arm motion, like the windmill arm motion for some people is really hard. I don't know why. It's not fucking hard. Just be better. But the accuracy of where the ball goes is much easier to dictate terms than baseball. I don't know why. I don't know how. I don't know the biomechanics behind it. Also, the distance between the bowler and the batsman for cricket and from the pitcher and the batter for baseball, the pitcher and the batter in baseball are much further apart. The mound is much further apart than from wicket to wicket in cricket. Cricket to me is dead boring. How the outfielders make a wage is beyond me. How do you make a wage? How do you make money on the outfield? You're scratching your nuts for 3.5 fucking hours. Then you'll go for lunch, have a couple margies, couple crumpets, couple margaritas, and you'll come back out and then scratch your ass for the other 3.5 hours or however long cricket goes for. It is so boring. I've never watched it. I've never watched a game of cricket, a match of cricket from start to finish. Even 2020 is a bit different. 2020 is more exciting to watch, but still, why do you have outfielders? They don't do anything. Baseball is different though, because you have a much higher chance of being able to when you connect with the ball to get the ball to the outfield than you do with cricket, because the ball could go so many different ways when it comes to cricket. Because you can, it's so many different ways, but when it comes to baseball, the outfielders even have more play time, more chance to be able to involve themselves in the game than the outfielders do in cricket. Cricket to me is just, I grew up playing baseball though here in Australia. I played baseball as a kid in Australia, and like it's a slower sport. It's compared to others. Cricket's even worse. Golf's even fucking worse. Don't get me started on golf. Jesus Christ. Is it a sport? I don't know. But last thing I wanted to talk about to wrap up the first episode was just something very funny that only just sort of come out. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and one of the podcasts I listen to is The Fighter and the Kid with Brendan Schaub and Brian Callen and Chappelle Lacey. Chappelle Lacey and Brendan Schaub raced each other. They were going to race each other. As they did race each other, they were all both talking a bit of trash, talking a bit of smack, and talking it up and yarning it all up, and they both were like, okay, fuck, let's go. Like, you put your money where your mouth is. Let's do this. Let's race. Like, next week, let's race. Let's do this. And Brendan's like he's a former professional athlete. Like, he played. Well, he was a part of the Buffalo Bills NFL squad for like a couple of weeks. He was a legit college football athlete. Did technically have a jersey for the Buffalo Bills before becoming a professional UFC fighter, which he was more well known for his UFC career. And he did fight some decent opponents. He did fight Travis Brown. Did fight Little Nog Nogueira. He did fight who's the big fucking dog? One of the big dogs. Oh, it's doing my head in. Nah, shit, I forgot it. I'm not going to bother trying. But he had some good fights. He was just a great, not probably the greatest fighter, but he was just a great athlete. And Chappelle Lacey was a cheerleader in high school and college, and is a legit athlete. To be fair, not to be racist, but to be fair, Chappelle Lacey is an African American. The race is over. Brendan Schaub is a white man. Chappelle Lacey is a black man. The race was won before it was started. I think Brendan is a little bit lighter than Chappelle. I think Chappelle's carrying a bit more extra kgs. He's carrying a few kegs on Brendan Schaub, but Brendan Schaub is in better condition. both of them were racing. I think they're doing a 40-yard dash, I think, or maybe 100 meters. I don't know. It was one of the two. It was a very short clip. Brendan blew out both of his hamstrings. Both hamstrings. You can see it in the video, like it was just, you can see he was kind of stretching beforehand. He didn't warm up. Did not warm up. Didn't even really try to warm up either. He was like, nah, shut up, man. Shut up. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go. We don't need to, because Brian Cannell was like, come on, boys, like, as an older guy, warm up, stretch. Come on, you're going to need to. Like, you're not 21 anymore. You're old. Like, I think one of them, like, Chappelle's like 35 and Brendan's like 40-odd. 40, 41. They're just like, you need to stretch, do a few laps, do something. Brendan's like, shut up. And then so like, fuck it. So they raced. They just raced. They did a couple little stretches, raced, done. And I think it was like halfway. They were neck and neck for a bit. Chappelle's carrying more kegs. He's got a heavier frame than Brendan. Chappelle can fucking motor. He has some goddamn toe on him, man. When he unleashes, he's just like, he's like a beefy Carl Lewis. A beefy Ben Johnson, mate. But like, they're both about, I think Chappelle's like 6'2", 6'3", and Brendan's like 6'4" or so. Big boys, can motor, former athletes, both of them. Brendan annihilated both of his hamstrings. Like, I found, not only is that hilarious, but it's not hilarious, but like, what the fuck do you expect? You want to go for a sprint at 40? I'm 25. If I sprint now at 25 and not have a sprint, and if I've not sprinted in like 3 years plus, you can't just fucking click your fingers and make it happen. The body doesn't work like that. But still, like, I feel bad for Brendan. I think he had thick mutter coming up, and which is tough mutter, but just like thick boy, 3 C's, his brand, and he was pretty bummed out about it. Like, I tipped Brendan to win the race, but Chappelle was head to head with him. Not only was he head to head to him, I don't know if I think it could have been easily a draw, or Chappelle maybe could have won. I have to rewatch the video again, but man, it was actually pretty entertaining to watch. But you could just see Brendan, like, I think halfway to 3/4 of the way through the race, like, his hamstrings weren't well from the get go, and he just pulled up real gingerly, and everyone was kind of shocked, almost like the grassy knoll kind of shooter. He just stopped out of nowhere. He was so bummed out, man. I kind of feel sorry for him, but like hopefully he can still participate in thick mutter, and he'll still be sweet. But actually, it did come up with one thing. Podcast land, if this message gets to Brendan Schaub all the way from the Unaccommodating podcast here in Australia, I've got a tip for his recovery, for his hamstring recovery. I think it was 10 days, he said, until thick mutter. So if he wants to get himself better, like, he can take all the drugs that he wants, he can do all the rehab he wants, but if they're muscle belly tears in the hamstrings, and they're not like tendon tears, and there's a bit of bruising there, there's a method that powerlifters use called the STAR method, after Bill Starr, STARR. And this STAR method, I've used it recently on my pec. I did a small pec strain, and I've used it before when I've actually torn my pec properly, like real tear, real torque, real time. And the method makes, like, it makes zero sense. It makes zero sense in terms of recovery. It makes zero sense in terms of, like, logic. Logic goes out the window straight away. You feel like this is just like a sabotage, this rehab program. But I shit you not, this works. Brendan Schaub, if you're listening, the Bill Starr method of recovery for muscle tears, it's been noted. People have done this. It's become fairly popular in the powerlifting space, especially people who really know what they're doing, who lift heavy ass weights because they need to find a way to return to training quicker for competition or whatever the case may be. Look at the STAR method and trust it. Essentially, the STAR method is, say you tear your hamstrings on Friday, you should be back in the gym training it by Monday. About a 48-hour turnover before you should be back in the gym, like, working on it and putting some weight. So say you tear your hamstrings, say you do stiff-legged deadlifts. but say you only do them with 2 kilo dumbbells on each side. So if it's kilos, it's about 4.5 pounds, 5 pounds, 4 to 5 pounds each hand, and do your stiff leg deadlifts that way. And then the next day you'll do 7 pounds, the next day you'll do 9 pounds, and the next day you'll do 11 pounds, 13 pounds, 15 pounds, 20 pounds, and for about 6 to 9 days, you will do every single day, you will slowly increase the weight. Like, it seems like it's a very counterintuitive program, but the thing, without going into a full rehab rundown, and then to contradict what physiotherapists and PTs say, what the PTs do first and foremost, they let you rest for like 48 hours, and you should be icing it and elevating it, all that kind of shit. And then after that, they want you to get into the PT, want you to get into physical therapy or to physiotherapy. And so once you get into physical therapy, then they want to just slowly for the next week or two take you through ranges of motion, take you through, all the different planes of motion, and they want to get you essentially moving the hamstring properly, or moving the pec, or whatever muscle you've torn. Start to put that through ranges of motion, but not put any load or any tension on the muscle yet. They just want to make sure that first and foremost mobility is key, so that you don't lose mobility in whatever part of your body that you've torn the muscle in. And so that's a smart way to approach it. But then by the time you start putting any load or any tension under the muscle, which is like, by week 3 or so, or week 4, your body's had so much scar tissue built up over that area to try and protect and try and repair that muscle. Like, the way that the muscle works, muscles glide and slide like over each other. So when they contract and relax, the muscle is actually sliding, the filaments are sliding over each other. And if you have too much scar tissue in the way, the muscles cannot glide, the filaments can't glide over each other, which means the muscle can't contract properly, which hinders your opportunity to be able to recover properly and be able to contract and relax the muscles properly over time. So the physiotherapist will have you do shit like too late. They put you through all the necessary steps in the correct order, but they don't put you under load quick enough. And that's the problem. Like, the way that this method kind of works is that you start to lay new muscle. Instead of letting the scar tissue build up and constrict the way the filaments are crossing over each other, if the muscles can't contract and relax, you have serious issues. You're going to have so much, you're going to have to spend more time in physical therapy later on to break down that scar tissue to make sure the filaments start gliding again properly. So beat it to the punch and then start creating and laying new fresh muscle, instead of letting the scar tissue build up. That's the theory behind it, and it's worked many times beforehand. I've used it a couple times myself with success. So Brennan, if you, I know he won't, because this is an amateur podcast, but if it does get back to him in podcast land, the Bill Starr method, it'll be a way to be able to get you back to thick mutter in 10 days, and you will have had some more load under the muscle. You would have feel more confident. You take all the steroids and everything that you need, painkillers, whatever you want, but just to get you sort of back in the gym or back moving properly again, Bill Starr method. And that's my little love shout to the Fighter and the Kid and the Brennan Schaub. So to wrap everything all up, you can't find me anywhere. You can't follow me on social media. Don't follow me on social media. I have no TikTok. I have no Instagram. I have no Facebook. I have no Twitter. I fucking hate Twitter. Twitter's shit. I don't understand Twitter. It's fucking boring. You have limited fucking characters. What the fuck is that all about? It's dumb. Anyway, that's a rant for another day. No social media, so you can't follow me. So, but if you do like the episode, if you do like the Unaccommodating podcast, just listen. Rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Give it a rating and review. Don't be afraid to download the episodes and listen to the episodes and subscribe to the podcast. If you're doing that, then I know people are interested and people want to keep hearing more of it, and then I will grow it. I will grow the podcast and I'll expand other avenues. But until then, I'm just keeping this very, very basic, very simple. If you like the show, listen to the show. Then I'll know that people are interested. But until then, signing off on the very first episode of the Unaccommodating podcast. Hopefully this is the first of many. When this episode does release, I'll be releasing 1 or 2 more episodes alongside it. So I'll do a 2 or 3 episode drop straight away. So episode 1 and 2 or episode 1, 2 and 3 will all drop straight away. So there won't be the first 3 episodes will all drop on the same day on the first week. So you'll have a little bit of listening material there to start off with, and then I want to release episodes on Mondays. It works out piss fucking poor scheduling wise for me. But I know for myself, I don't know many podcasts, and the podcasts that I listen to anyway, they don't have Monday releases. They don't have, they all have Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday releases. Like, those are the most common days for releases. Every podcast that I listen to don't drop on Monday. So I've got nothing to listen to on a Monday. Not that I want to listen to myself on a Monday, but nothing drops on a Monday. So I thought, you know what, I'll listen to myself to critique myself. However, I want to drop an episode on a Monday just because not many other people are doing it. It's not the best day to release a podcast, but everyone else is doing theirs on another day. I just want something to listen to on a fucking Monday. Anyway, instead of going back through old episodes of all the other shit, it's always good to do that, but every now and then there's only so much material that you're interested in that, you know, has enough podcasts, has enough episodes there. So I want to drop things on a Monday, do things a little bit differently. But yeah, I'll release a small handful of episodes all at once, and then I'll just release once every week. But that is me signing off for this episode, the very first episode of the Unaccommodating podcast. Thank you very much for everyone who's listening.